What would you say to the parent that maybe grew up like I did in more of the purity culture where the model was at 12, 13 years old, the parent takes you out for the big sex talk and that's maybe the first time. And if that's what we were raised in, we're still thinking like, I was going to wait till they were 13. What do you mean at 2 or 3 I start having conversations? So why is it not wise to wait until our kids hit puberty to start having these conversations? And why would we start conversations even in toddler years?
Well, like anything, there's a building block to learning. And so starting with a great foundation just creates that sense of security and that sense of building blocks. Mom and dad are safe. Your body is good, made in God's image. And here's how it works, just even in like potty training and some of those things. It's a building block of how we care and how we steward and manage ourselves as human beings. And then to me, I love the brain study. This is why I'm just so grateful for, Pure Desire. I love listening to Heather Cole when she's on the podcast because it's so fun to see your brain light up about wonderful things in life. And so giving your kids other experiences for the brain is, I think, a great way to even just kind of combat this whole thing so porn isn't the only dopamine kids feel.
And we don't disregard having a conversation or an intentional conversation at puberty and in high school. And, all of those are good. It's just you don't start there. Don't wait until that time to do it. And one of the things I always think is just our kids are like little sponges when they're small. And everything mom and dad says is just amazing. I remember one of my sons said to my mom to his grandma, let's ask my mom, she's a genius, when he's like 3, So I was like, okay, I'm going to write that down for when I'm not a genius anymore.
When he's 23 going, what do you know?
Yeah, right.
Definitely went through the stage where I wasn't a genius anymore, but back then I was a genius. So I think about that when we're training parents that up into that young, older grade school age, they're just a sponge for everything that their parents say. And as they get to be middle school and high school, they're much more influenced by their peers. And it's not that you can't stay in the game there with them, but they become much more interested in what peers are saying. So I think that's one great benefit of starting young, is we're establishing that conversation and that relationship when they are just really full on listening to us. And hopefully we can remain safe and kind of walk into that next season with them along with their peers and be able to discuss what they're learning or talking about with their peers as well.
And they're hearing sexual language, not in a derogatory way or a dishonoring way, but they're hearing sexual language in a normalized, healthy way of communicating it.
Yeah. I know for us, our boys, watch stuff on Disney Plus. They got great shows on there that they watch. And man, at the time of this recording, we're recording this in June, right? And that's Pride Month. And so everywhere, including on Disney Plus, including on the kids' profiles on that app, that they're pushing LGBTQ stuff. And I'm not even taking a stance on that. I mean, I think we take a biblical stance on that anyway, but just that is a sexualized narrative that is being presented to my kid. And so that is something that I need to be aware of. And that's something that monitoring is really important. And so I think that that's why even Brooks, my 3-year-old, he's seeing that and getting exposed to that. And now he can string sentences together, but he still needs a translator. So it's not like he can totally articulate everything. But in reality, I still need to be addressing that to some level with him. If he asks questions, if he hears his brother ask questions about it or sees it. And so I think that that's, for us practically why we have to start addressing it so early.
Yeah, one of the fears that you expressed earlier, Tracy, as a parent was overexposing your kids, giving them too much information too soon. And I'm really of the conviction that if our heart is to help our kids and to train them, it's not possible to overexpose them. Because if we're doing it for the right motives, what I think about is our kids are going to hear these words and concepts somewhere for the first time. And I feel like, well, wouldn't it be the best possible situation if the first time and place they heard it is from mom and dad, even if their little brain didn't comprehend what it was? And what I've seen in my kids, if there's a concept or word that they're not really ready to understand, we can have the conversation. It just kind of goes over their head. They're like, But even, words like sex and penis and pornography and having just a quick explanation of what that is at an age appropriate level, now it's like their brain they've got a framework for it. I know the word, I've heard about it. And so if then on the bus or at some function, another 4-year-old is using that word, they're like, oh, I've talked about that with mom and dad, or I feel safe asking mom and dad what that means. And I don't think overexposure is possible if we're doing it for the reasons to love and to train and to guide our children, because we're helping them create a healthy framework. And even in the toddler years, that's needed for parts of the body, starting to understand the differences between boys and girls. I mean, those are places that a 3-year-old is starting to be aware of. My body, if they've got a little sister, just those conversations come up, our bodies are different. What a great opportunity with even a toddler to age appropriately explain that.
Yeah.
And you're talking about education, and sometimes we even use the word exposure, which kind of has a negative term, but education is very positive, and it's true. You use phrases that your kids won't understand. Someday my grandson Louis may look at me and say, oh, that's what strategic nerve endings were. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
He may just laugh and say, oh, you always use that word, strategic nerve endings. Now I know what he's talking about.
And everyone who's heard Rodney speak said amen, because we've heard that.